obviously I did SAS selection in 1984. And my last 2 years was spent as an instructor selecting and training guys for the SAS. So I've seen selection from both sides of the fence. What used to get me was in the early stages when I was on selection, you would see some guys that were super fit. And in my head, I was thinking, geez, I'm not as fit as that guy. So am I going to fail? And they were always thinking, oh, I can't wait to get to the jungle phase, where my way of thinking is get this day done and don't worry about the next day. The next day hasn't happened yet. And then to my surprise, these super fit guys I'll give you one example. We were waiting on the back of the wagon when we were doing the mountains phase. This is where you walk over the Welsh Brecon Beacons as an individual carrying heavy weights. So the staff member called out this guy and said, "You're next." And there was just a silent. And I said, "He's just called you to go." And he just went, "Screw this." He said, "I'm rapping." And I was like, oof. It was nearly like he had the Black Plague and I didn't want to be around him. And I just was like, wow. And then the instructor shouted, he then said to the instructor, "I've rapped, I'm rapping, I've had enough." And so I just said, I was called out and I was just bang on the hills. Then there was one time in the jungle as an instructor, you could see the guys when they're patrolling and doing their NAVXs, and I could see this guy, and it was just his body language, and I knew he was going to rap. He'd just given up. He was going through the motions. And what was bizarre was we as instructors, navigation in the jungle is completely different because you do it by pacing. On the Brecon Beacons, you can see Penny Fan, 15 miles away type of thing. So that's where you're heading. In the jungle, you can't see 10 feet away, So you get very claustrophobic and everything else. So we build the guys up by training them. Then we do a 3-day NAVX where it's nearly like a round circle coming back into the camp. And first day walking, I could see this guy's body language and thought, he's going to rap here. Anyway, we got to the halfway point the next day, and they came up and he said, "Staff, I've had enough. I'm rapping." And I went, okay. And I was always fair. I said, "Sit over there. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to think about this, and then come back with your answer." So he came back to me and said, "Yeah, I'm definitely rapping. That's it." So I went, "Okay, give me your weapon." I unloaded his weapon, folded it up, put it in his rucksack. I kept his magazine with the rounds. And I said, "Just tag on behind me." He said, "No, but Staff, I've told you, I've rapped." And I went, "Well, how the hell do you think we're getting back? There ain't anybody coming in for you. You're going to walk back. You're going to do what you should have done, and you'd still be on selection."
Wow.
So it's that thing. Now, SAS selection, they're not supermen, they're soldiers, but they have a desire to pass that selection. It's not impossible. You just have to work at it, and you just have to be committed. And as I've said, your body can go beyond what you think it is. When you're tired, there's always still something left. And it's like, don't be a child by saying, "Oh, I'm tired here." You just grit your teeth and you keep moving.
And as you mentioned there, you were part of the training team for selection. So as someone on the training team, when you're watching on, what sort of traits and attributes are you looking for really that lets you know that person is in the 1% of the 1%?
Well, first off, you look at the guys and you're looking actually for the grey man who isn't standing out, but he's completing. So the guy, and it's quite clever the guy who stays in the middle of the pack, and initially, when they do the hills phase, you have them in groups because you're actually also giving them navigational exercises and teaching them before you get to maybe week 3 of selection, and that's where they go as individuals. But you're looking at the guy who will stay in the middle and not be recognized. He does exactly that. He's not at the front busting his bollocks, trying to put pressure on the instructor by saying, "I can run faster than you." He's just coasting in the middle, doing exactly what he's told to do. And they're the ones you look for. And because again, a lot of the guys who turn up on day one and try to what they think is an impress us are the ones who will end up putting their hand up halfway through and say, "This is not for me."
Mhm. Wow.
So it's the guy who basically you know, he does everything, but you don't know him until you get to the jungle, and there he'll be a born leader. You will see him, and then he'll start taking control of maybe the patrol that the guys are working in, and he understands where his surroundings are.
Yeah, and just on that first phase alone, you mentioned like the Brecon Beacons Penavan. It's not very far from me actually. What is it about that environment that works so well for the selection process? Is it what is it about that is?
Now, basically, the guys are given rucksacks to carry. Um, uh, they're expected to walk an average of say 3 to 4 k's an hour, over extended periods of time. So it's not as if you're in a race like hammering it. It's over time. Now, another aspect of selection is when you're doing that by yourself. The reason we do that is obviously the obvious ones are so it proves that you can navigate, but it also what it does is allows the student to talk himself out of it. Now, if you and I were on the mountains together and I was feeling like knackered, you were having a good day, you could be saying, come on, keep going, push on. But when you're by yourself, you've got nobody to talk to. So it's playing in your mind. And, over a period of 8 to 12 hours on the hills, how hard it is on them hills. You can soon think, oh, this is too hard for me. And maybe the SAS isn't for me. And yeah, you get a lot of guys come in and they'll just say, I've had enough, can't do it. And it just plays with the head. You just got to get out there. It's going to be hard. It's just like, keep going. And that's it. It's a slow win every single day.
When I've spoken to members of the SAS in the past, they all cite the psychological or interrogation phase as being probably the hardest stage. And I know for a lot of people who don't understand, they might just see that as it's a bit of a role play over interrogation. But what is the reality of that phase?
Right. Well, first of all, it is difficult once you've been put into the pen and you're getting interrogated because they put you into stress positions,
Yeah.
and that goes on for 32 to 34 hours. So you're uncomfortable for that and you're awake for that. And obviously sleep deprivation plays with your head. But if you go in with the mindset of, I know this is going to be difficult, they can't kill me, they can stick a gun in my face, they can do whatever. They can't do anything that's going to, where you're going to be carried out of there. So it's just more of a ball ache, and just keeping your head straight. And the thing is, on my selection, 6 guys, and they were the toughest guys on that selection. One guy was from the valleys. He had hands like shovels. In fact, I think he started off in the pit. He was a monster. But what happened was, when you go into the interrogation room, there's cameras in there, and all the different interrogators are watching your reactions when you're being questioned. And you've got a guy who looks quite normal, quite nice. He's nice with you. He'll offer you a piece of chocolate, some water, but you have to sign for it, which is a no-no. You will have a guy who looks quite boring and he just keeps asking you the same question over and over again. You'll get another guy who's a nasty looking guy, and he's nasty. And then you get a woman, and the female interrogator, first thing she will do is, you're in a set of overalls. She'll say, take them overalls off. And you're behind the desk. Now, with this guy from the valleys, she then started making fun of his privates because it was freezing cold and everything else. He then tried to fly across the desk to throttle her, but there's 2 guards behind you. Straight away, he was out. And she broke the 6 guys on that exercise. And it was, I was gobsmacked, you've got to be in a mind of, I'm going to I'm going to give you my name, rank, and number, and that's it. And you can say whatever you want. It's like no reaction on your face or anything. You just stand there and you're like, that's it. So it's an uncomfortable, I wouldn't say it's the hardest, but it's an uncomfortable 36 hours. And the reason being, the week before you've been on the run, like maybe somewhere in Aberystwyth or something like that, being chased by dog teams and everything else. So you're not sleeping, you're certainly not eating. So you go into the interrogation in a weakened state, mentally and physically. But again, you know that, it's 34 hours and it's over.